This video is about 3 women whose voices were overshadowed by the men history chose to remember. 3 artists whose stories deserve to stand on their own. It's time to recognize the women whose work was silenced or ignored. By remembering them, we don't just restore their voices, we empower our own. Dora Maar, a surrealist photographer and painter, best known as Picasso's partner, but an accomplished artist in her own right. Before Picasso, she was already acclaimed. Her haunting photographs captured the anxieties of the 1930s. She was politically engaged, artistically fearless. Then she met him. They say she influenced Picasso to paint Guernica. He had never entered political painting before. It was her who documented the creation of Guernica, not only preserving its process, but helping shape its power through countless conversations, critique, and emotional labor. And yet, her name became synonymous with tragedy, not legacy. Picasso painted her sobbing, called her his weeping woman, immortalizing her suffering while ignoring its cause. He fed on the women around him, taking their creativity, their energy, their love, and giving little in return. He once said, "For me, there are only 2 kinds of women, goddesses and doormats." I think all his partners started from being goddesses and then gradually were made doormats by him. He would take their ideas, their energy, their time, and leave them drained, disregarded, even forgotten. Dora Maar was no exception. Picasso was captivated by Dora's intelligence, beauty, and talent, but as their relationship progressed, it took a heavy toll on her spirit. After their breakup, Dora withdrew from the public eye, facing a difficult period of emotional and artistic struggle. She spent years healing from the damage caused by Picasso. Only recently has the world begun to see her for who she was, not a muse, but a master. Camille Claudel was a sculptor of extraordinary talent. She lived in the late 19th century France, where her brilliance was threatening to every man in the room. She worked with Auguste Rodin, who's famous for the thinker, sculpture, and many others. Rodin knew she wasn't simply gifted, she was exceptional. He used it and signed his name to works they crafted together. Camille became Rodin's muse, collaborator, and lover, but her work was often overshadowed by his fame. Rodin and Camille spent 10 years working together, but despite their bond, he refused to marry her, and their relationship eventually ended. Claudel's family was ashamed of her, and they locked her away in a psychiatric asylum. She spent there the last 30 years of her life, having no chance to make art anymore. For 30 years, Camille had almost no visitors, not even from her family. When she died, she was buried in a mass grave. Lee Krasner wasn't just Pollock's wife. Before she met him, she was already a trained, skilled modernist painter, studying at the National Academy of Design and working with Hans Hofmann. She was no apprentice. She was an artist in her own right. Yet when she met Jackson Pollock, the narrative shifted. She introduced him to the right people. She shaped his style. Yet she was overshadowed, not for lack of brilliance, but for being a woman in a world that refused to look her way. Her role was always secondary, a supporting figure in a narrative that wasn't hers. Pollock passed away. She continued painting relentlessly, while the world kept its back turned. Krasner's story is not an exception, it's a pattern. There are many more whose stories deserve to be told. They were part of a larger pattern, a quiet legacy of genius ignored. But here's what they teach us. Art is not just about fame, it's about courage. They teach us that being an artist isn't always about being celebrated. Sometimes it's about endurance. It's about creating even when the world refuses to look. So let's rewrite the story. Let's recognize the masters who were always there. Let's remember the women who made art, not just with their hands, but with their whole lives.